Okay, my name is Damiana Illaria Donde, also maestra and baronessa and all that stuff. I've been in the SCA for 33 years now. Interestingly, I've been working on Italian for about the last 25 years or more. And this was actually an easy class for me to put together because I first wrote this in about 1997. Now, what I want to do is just show you, I'm going to be talking about 15th century and 16th century. And I believe it was Sarai who just presented, and I'm really happy that I got on at about 11:30, about half an hour ago, just as she was doing her hair taping. So that means that I don't have to cover a lot of that, but I'll talk about that because it has a part to play in these balzo or balzi. Okay, so we're going to talk about some 15th century examples. We're going to talk about some 16th century examples. I'm going to show you kind of somehow how to make them. A lot of times when I do this class hands-on, we're in my kitchen because the document I've posted, and it is on the event site on Facebook, is called Cooking Up a Balso. And so it's there. You can go navigate to it. It's a PDF right now. And there's a lot of historical reference, so I'm not going to go into a lot of those details. And frankly, to be honest, I probably wouldn't remember all of them right now. Literally 25 years worth of research for me. But I am able to show you that I still keep making balzo and balzi. And I'm going to just stand up right now and show you what I've got on because it's very important that we're in context. It's a strange angle that I'm at, so I'm going to put on my, my sort of classic 16th century pose here. But it's very important that we're talking about it associated with a certain style of clothing. So right now, this is a 16th century, early 16th century piece of clothing. It's one of my favorite periods in Italian costume. And frankly, it fits my fuller figure. As I get fuller, the costumes, the dress gets fuller, the balzi get bigger. So, there's a balance here. And I'm just going to switch back to sort of speaker view because it's disconcerting sometimes to see other people for some reason, but that's all right. So I'm just gonna show you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with some 15th century examples, then I'm gonna talk about making it, then I'll go to 16th century because otherwise it gets kind of boring to just see all the examples or all the making. So I'm gonna switch it up a bit. And in back of me, my friends have come out to play. They usually sit in the closet. So they got to come out to play today in the light and the air and be exposed for, in some cases, the first time in many, many years. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully, let's see now. We're gonna go here. See if we can do this properly. So first thing I'm gonna do is just show you some 15th century examples. So I've decided to kind of remain in this view. Now, I hope it's big enough for you to see because it's distracting to have like 10 of them at once. So I'm just gonna sort of screen through these. And in some cases, I have references to where these are actually from. And in other cases, I have them titled like this, 15th century other styles, right? So very technically named. I've actually gone back. It was fun doing this because I see the first time I did this was like in 1997. And then I did a big update in like 2001 and 2002. And then I taught a class probably 6 years ago in my kitchen again. So some friends of mine made their balzi. And so now, I'm updating a little bit more. So you can see, I hope you can see it in the view enough. These are sort of prototypical. They're kind of developing. You can see this is 15th century, and there's some things going on. And so the style of hair starts to getting bigger as the dress gets more lavish. And so what's going on in context is we're kind of in the Gothic period here. So in France, you have the houppelons, and it was great that Sarai was just demonstrating all of that because that's where some of this comes from. And it starts getting fancier and fancier, more dramatic. There was actually a verb in Italian called pavoneggiare, which means to kind of strut, and it's a pavone is a peacock. So a lot of these more extreme fashions as we get developed end up being, you know, very elaborate court costume where you are really strutting your stuff, and the shape of the balzo changes. So we're just going to flip through this because I want to make sure I keep on time. So you can just take a look at these. You can see what's going on. You've got veils. You've got sort of, it's sort of what I'll call bulbous in the front in this picture here. And you've got all sorts of things going on. A lot of hair taping, like Sarai has just demonstrated, this hair taping is happening from even the 14th century or probably before. It's a very practical way. This is one of my favorite photos. It's some of these are not great quality, but this is a balzo and it's got a crown on top of it. Now, do I really think that was really happening? No, it's I don't know, this was probably the Virgin or something like that, but I think it was great that even on top of a balzo, somebody's sticking a crown, or sometimes a halo perhaps. So these are some great pictures because you can see all sorts of different hairstyles. So we're still in the 15th century here. We are in the early 15th century, sort of 1440-ish, things start to be developing, and you can see all these different things going on, different shapes. Now, I'm going to show you some examples of this closer up. This is a sella. I hope you can see my mouse. I'm not really sure if you can. In the right-hand corner, this lady here, she's got her basically like a horned hennin. So a sella just means a saddle in Italian, and because you've got this sort of droop in the middle of the seat, and you've got the sella going contemporaneously to a balzo here. And then you've got all, you know, all sorts of different hairstyles going on in different shapes. So this is a really good example that, you know, this is not just one thing going on. Hard to see in this. I don't know if it's going to get any bigger. No, it won't right now. I'll just click on this, see if I can open it up a little bit bigger so you can see. Zoom, 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 zoom. Okay, so again, this is early. Pisanello is one of my favorite painters from this period and was very influential in me doing some of my work. So you can see huge rolls of hair, probably fake plates. I don't see these as being probably her natural hair. Possibly though, could be a very large balzo and a sort of a different shaped one here. So this is a great photo of various different examples. Okay, and don't worry, this isn't going to go on too long because I know you can look these up on your own. But so meanwhile, what's going on? You've got hair taping going on. You've got some things going on in the left-hand corner with this lady coming in. Just as an example for the hair taping, the bende, which could be the silk or linen, you know, strips and ribbons for your hair, did not have to be only white. I typically use white myself, but there's some examples of blue, black. So, you know, they got bored with one color also. Now this, we'll talk about this a little bit more. I would say this is more of a ghirlanda. A ghirlanda would be a garland, you know, and it could have originally started with just flowers that developed into something kind of crazier, either with fake leaves or fake flowers or wool. This is peacock feathers, for example. So you can see, you know, it's quite dishy. Okay, we've got, you know, kind of more hair taping, or it could be a ghirlanda, you know, that's bigger than her natural hair. Early 15th century or middle 15th century. This particular painting is on a book cover that I have from Pisanello. And again, and I'm going to show you this because I made this this balzo from this example. And so that'll be one of the ones I show you when making. There's our lady with the crown on. And then I just like to mention here, and I'm going to switch back to camera in a moment. I'm not sure if you see me and the camera, or just the examples here. But anyway, there's some extreme things going on with men's fashion too. So this is not just all about the ladies. You can see in this example, you know, you have this very large height, you know, headgear going on, and I do not know if they called it a balzo for men too. I do not think so. But at any rate, this is sort of coming from the chaperone, and So there is a lot of influence on men's fashions too. At the same time, you've got things like the, oh God, my words just went, the chaperone, I guess it was, yes. With a coxcomb and typically got wrapped around, you know, coming from a lot of French and Gothic fashion. You've got sort of, you know, various different kinds of headwear going on in men's fashion also as it gets more extreme. So it's not all about the ladies. So this is a costume. This is a Pisanello costume study that's in Chantilly. I actually went there and was able to request this, this it's actually a drawing or painting, and I was able to look at it in person. I think this is a picture from my photos way back when. That was about 20 years ago in the book. So again, now we've got a couple of examples of a sella. So you've got this wonderful example with that rose-colored velvet too, and coming down on one side. You know, so here's the saddle from the side. And then again, very, very classic photos, another example of a sella, or, you know, what we call a double hennin. And then sort of, she's an odd looking lady, but she has some great, great horns there, right? You know, the hennins. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and we're going to switch to the make side. So I'm going to stop share. Let's see. Now, I haven't, just the examples for now with you, very small at the top of the screen. Thank you, because I couldn't see the chat at all during that time. So no idea what's going on in the virtual world. Okay, so, and forgive me, I'll probably go back to these chats. I'll try to pay attention. I'll get distracted probably. Plus, I am not wearing my glasses right now, so I have to sort of peer at the screen. Okay, so that's great. No questions at the time. So right now, you should see me again. Now we're going to talk about making. So the first thing I want to talk about are some materials. Now, I'm hoping you can all see me again now, fine. So what I'm holding up is basically basket weaving materials. Now, this was not how I started, okay? I'm going to share one thing with you because I want to show you how all this started. Let's see if I can find the right one. Bear with me. Desktop one, Finder. Okay. See if I can find her. Okay. So this is kind of how it all started. This is, I'll hold it up, and I understand that you see me very tiny in the right-hand corner. So great. Okay. Me and my Jacqueline Harold Renaissance dress in Italy, 1400 to 1500. Classic book, way too overpriced now, but luckily I got it a million years ago when it wasn't so overpriced. And in that book is this small picture. And so that sat with me for a long time, but you can really see this interesting structure of, you know, bent willow. And it's so interesting because before this, I had gone through a phase, I'm going to stop sharing. I had gone through a phase with other people where we did lots of padded rolls. And if you've ever done a padded roll and really tried to make it very big, like some of those examples, you will know that it is very heavy. Okay. And that is not a fun thing. You will quickly develop a headache. So that photo that we just looked at with the basically basket weaving material was sort of an enlightenment. Now at the time, I'm not even sure we were heavily into the internet, and I'm pretty sure it was before Amazon. We're talking probably mid-90s. At any rate, wasn't sure where I could get these materials, and I didn't try. I was more experimental. So what I did is I went down to Joann Fabrics, and I got one of those wreaths that you stick on your door, and you stick like fake flowers or dried flowers in. And in fact, you could go out to your garden if you have a garden and go get, for example, wisteria vine, okay? And that would probably work fine. It would probably even work better than this. So this is a prototype that I made as a demonstration example, probably about 25 years ago. And I'm gonna just, you know, it's kind of springy. Now this thing is 25 years old, right? It's all dried out and all that. And you can see that it's not particularly straight. So that's one of the drawbacks of using these rolls of wreath stuff that you get in for decorating is because it's already kind of got a wobbly frame to it. So once I had done that, and it does work, and that's how my first one was made. Once you've done that, then you can kind of move to this this basket weaving material. I have a couple of different thicknesses. This is, I think, slightly thinner, and then there's a slightly thicker. It doesn't much matter, and you don't actually need a ton of it, okay? So we're gonna start talking about the 15th century version first. Oh, you can't see it. Oh dear, okay. Can you see anything? Did I stop sharing? Can you see this now?
I can see you. We were just having trouble when you were opening that image in the last, when you were sharing your screen last. It didn't open up for us. It stayed a tiny little picture.
Oh, well, let me share it again. Thank you for speaking up. Sure. Let me try it again, because this is a very important picture. It's very important. Let's see. Can you see it now?
That's working.
Can you can see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a very important picture because it's the only one I know that actually shows the, you know, the kind of infrastructure of these things. And it is really important. I'm going to stop sharing now. You can see it because it kind of indicates there's something going on. It's not just this big mass of padded material. So with that said, okay, now this is March. Okay, I'm going to tell you the story of my 15th century examples. First, I made a 16th century one. That was kind of the shape I showed you here. I'm going to go into those in a moment. And you know, the 16th century shape of rounder. The 15th century shape, as I was showing you those examples, you know, very bulbous. And I don't know if you can see so well, but the back of this is kind of, it kind of is domed out. And as an example, if I hold up Miss Pisanello here, you can see her, you know, kind of is more bulbous at the back. So Marge was made, and I call her Marge because by the time I made her and covered her, and I'm going to talk about some of those experiences, she, first of all, huge, and she got wickedly heavy. And it was like kind of extreme, and I was like, oh my God. So I undid Marge, and I have a couple of examples. So I keep Marge as an example of a 15th century frame, but by the time I added all the hair on and some padding, she got really wickedly large. So now I'm going to talk about I'm going to just show you a couple of other things because, you know, since I'm doing this screen sharing thing back and forth, actually what I'll do is I'll stand up right now. And I'll get, she's no longer Marge, but she's a little bit like her. So I hope you can see back here. Hard to see a little bit, but this is actually the Pisanello costume study that I made easily 20 years ago, and based on the one in the book. And so since I had made that, and I actually had made earlier, just bear with me. It started with the man, and so these are like Ferrara court costumes. So I started with this for my husband at the time, and then I had to make the companion Pisanello one. So once I had made that, hang him back up. I absolutely needed a Balzo, but I didn't have this at the time. So this is this is the 15th century example, and it's got fake fur on it, fake hair on it, no fur. You could use fur. I think they use just practically anything. So I'm just going to hold it up. I have basically lined it. You can see she's sort of fuzzy right now, but I lined it with the same silk that I used for the gown, the Jornea, and she's got this fake blonde hair on top, and then I just kind of braided it in because, as I was saying, I wanted to make this. So, you know, I kind of used this as my example, but this was one of the reasons why Marge was just way too big by the time I added all this fake fur, fake hair on. I'm stuck on the fake fur, I guess. So I'm going to put Marge, she's not Marge anymore, because she did become a little smaller. And there is a back and a front to these. So for example, I try to put something on that indicates the front because sometimes it's hard to see. I've just crossed it here, and this happens to be the back. And I hope you can kind of see that it's not quite a dome shape. The back is droopy and kind of, so working the shape of these things is important. Now, you're not going to do it all with the frame because it's hard to get the frame. And I do want you to look at those instructions I've posted on the event link, because what happens is as you're making this thing, and in this example, you can see that it's actually got all these little X's on it with twist ties, so these are going to be covered. Here I had, I don't know, I had a little wire. I used wire. I wouldn't use like tape. I wouldn't use like cellophane tape because I don't think that would hold up over the years. And one of the advantages is that these have held up, for 20 years and they're very light. But you can see in this case, because of the basket, this shape doesn't squish so much. So one of the things you're doing in this construction, cooking up a balzo, is you are wetting the material, just like they use to make baskets, right? You wet it or you steam it, and then you can mold the shape more. So you kind of have to play and you have to kind of squish, and then you're tying it to try to get that more squished form, because even in the 16th century example, you start up something higher and then you're kind of pushing it to get that shape when it dries. Okay, so couple of other things, and I'll go look at these examples. Now, when I did the first Marge and then this one, and I told you how heavy she got, and I have a couple of photos, it's because I added a lot of padding. I needed something to cover the frame, and you start out with this idea that you need to make it really fluffy inside to get this bulk. But by the time I added that, it was actually dryer lint at the time, pressed on, or cotton batting. And by the time you've added that on, and now you start adding the hair and this, extra braid, way too heavy. So one of the more recent improvements I've made is, first of all, you could use, this is raw wool. So, perfectly acceptable for, bulking it up. I think this in some ways would be better than maybe even the cotton batting, because it's got a bit more spring to it, and the cotton batting is kind of flat. So, but that's what I started with. You got to start somewhere. But these are, somebody is going to know much better what these are. These are silk. They're cocoons or something. Somebody's going to give me this name, right? Come on, one of you silk people, weaving people. They're like, there's a name for them. They're like bundles. Anyway, they're things of silk, and you can see that I'm opening it up, and this is like the perfect thing if you can get one, which I bought several of them at Penzic, because I'm like, oh, that would be really good for this padding sort of thing, because it's so light and fluffy. This weighs like nothing, and you can stretch it over your frame. Okay, so this improvement, and somebody's going to tell me what this thing is called, because I cannot read this receipt from many years ago. So, at any rate, okay. So now I'm going to share my screen again, and let's see if I do this right. Otherwise, people can speak up. All right, so we're back to that. That's not what I want to show. This is the article. Let's see if I can, stop share. Not sure where I'm going here. Share screen, desktop, okay. So this is the article that she's posted the link on. And so it has, I'll just show you, it has a lot of material on the history and the sella and where it came from, and references and bibliography and Herald and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not trying to sound boring. I was very interesting, but I'm not going to sit here and read it to you. You can read it yourself and all these references. Okay. So the point is, the beginning part is all kind of reference in history, etc. And this was originally made in the dark ages when you didn't, you know, you really couldn't put photos on the internet. So it's got limited photos, but at any rate, and then we get into cooking up a balzo. So this is really the how-to part, okay? So in the document, and I hope you can see this document on your screen. Thank you for nodding. Very good. So you basically need a water or kitchen or something. You can steam it. You could just soak it. You probably don't need to cook it. You know, you could, even though I cooked it the first time. So you've got your framework material. You've got linings and coverings. And I put the word silk cocoon on last night because, again, I couldn't remember the name of this thing that I just showed you. Overlining, lining, etc. And then we talk about you making the base, making the vertical kind of framework. I've got some diagrams in here. I'm just showing you kind of quickly. And then you're kind of making the vertical part of it, and then you're going around to the horizontal and tying it on in some fashion. So this is the example that I show you of the 15th century kind of shape you're trying to get, and the 16th century shape you're trying to get. Okay, and that's what's under Marge. No, that's not under Marge. That's under the Pisanello one. So that's basically the shape that it ended up being versus the Marge that I showed you. So we kind of go through it, and that's me wearing the Pisanello back in the day with all my curls, like Sarai, escaping. Okay, so this document really does have pretty much everything in it, and so I don't feel you're getting overlooked by not actually cooking it in front of you, and lots of endnotes and bibliography. Okay, so we're done with that for the moment, and now I just want to show you some of these photos a little bit bigger. So this is, there's photos in there of, you know, kind of some of the dimensions. You don't need to follow my dimensions. In fact, I don't think it's really that important because, let's see if I can make this bigger. Because you have so much flexibility in this. You know, you can see all of the different types of the various shapes that were in fashion. You can see that, you know, some of them go like this, some of them are really like that. You've got a ghirlanda, which is really much more of that kind of flat garland shape, but they go from, you know, quite modest to these massive things. So I give you that experience about Marge just because of the weight. And obviously the further up and back you go, the more kind of stress you've got on your head. So this is the example of the 15th century frame now covered, because you have to cover it in order to get your other materials onto it. So once you've made your frame that I was showing you, you basically can cover it with some very light material. Again, that silk cocoon, it would be perfect because it's so light. In this case, I used the kind of very loose weave. I think that's wool, actually. And then we have, hope you can still see these. Yes, I hope. Yeah, okay, good. So this is an example of the frame from the inside. So you have to have some sort of rim around it. I'm holding her up kind of hopefully in the camera too on the right or wherever you see it. And so, you know, you kind of need something a little bit squishy next to your head. What you don't want is, you know, that hard frame or any bits of wire obviously sticking into your head. So you have to pad it a little bit, and you have to allow for that in the dimensions. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have to show you? Okay, so this was, I talked about Marge and how she was undone in the end. And somewhere I have a photo of her before she was undone. But at any rate, you can see the differences in these two frames, right? In the height that I showed you, which I've still got her for a demonstration, and what the Pisanello study ended up actually being. So great difference basically in height because she gets so much higher after her hair is put on. Okay, what else do I have to show you? Oh, this was an example, and gosh, I'm peering at that going, what the heck is in there? Like, I think I was trying to build out the back of it, and this is how she got so heavy. I keep calling her she because, you know, it's a woman's headdress, so it's Marge. But this is how she ended up getting so heavy. So you learn from my mistakes. Do not start adding all this material. It's the same problem with doing a padded roll and stuffing it to get the size. From this experience, I really believe that some of those padded rolls could easily have been this kind of wicker material. And then they were just covered with some very light covering, maybe even that silk cocoon, and then covered, not, you know, packing them so densely. At any rate, so shaping it is important, but you just don't want this kind of massive material. Let's see, I already showed you her, like just trying to see if there's anything else. So these were some of the materials I used to cover the 15th century model. I think that was when Marge was being made, and because I can see all that padding in the back that I did not end up using. So I made braids out of fake fur, fake hair, can't get away from the fur, and ribbon, and you know, I just went to I don't know, the drugstore or wherever they sold that. And then just as an example, so again, back to kind of the whole ensemble, we need to be in balance here. So for example, you do see examples of women in just a camora, depending on where your region is. And for example, the woman with the crown on it, I think she just has a camora on. So, but at the time, the sleeves of that camora are fairly big. It's not that they've got this very slim line like even earlier in the 14th century. So here we are, you know, this is a Pisanello costume study. This is around, I think, 1440, and you're offsetting all of this draping kind of costume, you know, these long sleeves. It's similar to the French Gothic, you know, you've got this parallel height going up on your head. So, because what happens is, and I'll stop sharing now for a moment, what happens is, if you're wearing something like this, and you've got these massive sleeves on, or in the other case, those long draping, very peacocky sleeves, you look like a pinhead, okay, when you don't have anything to balance that out. So I'm going to take this off for the moment, and I'm going to just talk about, you can see, and I meant to go weigh these. I have a feeling I did weigh these in one of my last classes to figure out how much these things weigh. And I'm going to say it's a few ounces, okay, not even a pound. So I'm going to show, you know, again, I just used the material, and I decided to go with the peacock feathers. I think I had some at the time. And she's very light. I mean, these things, I could drop them, I could bounce them. And they have bounced on the floor before, but, you know, they're pretty sturdy if you don't put anything breakable on them. So how do I look? Oh, very fuzzy. Okay. So I'm going to get up now, and I'm going to switch to the 16th century. So I'm going to take, this is my very first one. And what my male friend here, if you can see him, can you see him? Yes? Oh, a little bit, okay. Well, at any rate, it's not so important. The costume is much the same that I've got on. It's just not, the sleeves aren't as massive. And, but you know, it's a male dummy wearing a woman's costume, but that's very common these days, so there's no problem with that. So this is the, and I'm calling this a capigliata. And the reason I'm calling it a capigliata is because I think in Herald she calls it that, and also Levi Pizetsky. So in my references, in that paper that is out there, there are a lot of references. Levi Pizetsky is like the historical authority on Italian costume, and she writes books this big. I'm lucky enough to have 2 of them. And unfortunately, they're all in Italian. If you don't speak Italian, you know, I'm not sure it would be worth it. But they do have a lot of photos in them, but most of them are black and white, in case you are interested. But if you can slog through it or you speak Italian, you can get a lot of information. So some of that is already translated for you in the document. So she's a capoeira. Now she is, here she is. She is made, okay, and I can feel the bumpiness in this frame underneath the covering that I have. This is, I probably made this in maybe 1992. Okay, so that was like when I first came back to the US. So that's how old this is. Now, she's been a little flattened over the years. She was probably a little bumpier at the beginning and, you know, just being stored and et cetera. But, you know, she's in pretty good shape. She hasn't changed much. And I'm going to talk about this more, putting her on, but she's actually very comfortable. And I can't really see what I'm doing because I have like a 1-inch view of myself. So I'm not going to tuck everything in here. Well, maybe I will. I'll end up taking it off. My hair will get messier and messier. And you can see she's quite a bit smaller than my peacock lady here. But that's because I decided I wanted to go for one of these 16th century examples. I think we're doing okay for time. Love this one. What do you love? You love the black one? That's the one you like? I don't know which one you like. Somebody said it. Okay. Well, my goal here is to see somebody else besides my one friend, Maria. Please wear it. So, you know, if you take this class, please go make one of some sort and send me a picture of it. So I'm not the only one in the world wearing these Balzo. Even though, you know, 200 years from now, that's like all you'll find about the internet is Liz Jones and the Balzo. So that's fine. You know, if we have to leave a legacy, let it be that. So I'm going to just see if I can get to my 16th century examples now. Bear with me. Uh-oh, yes, okay. Now, let's see if I share my screen and desktop. And okay. Now, can you see her?
We have a quick question from Giada. What material did you use for that black Balzo?
This is silk. This is black silk. I'm going to show you in a minute. I could have not made it of silk. I might as well show you now, but well, I know I'm sharing a screen, but we'll talk about, you know, this example of how I made this capoeira. It's not hard, just a lot of gathering. And yeah, it's black silk. It's basically probably a yard wide or something, a yard square. So if that answered that question, can you see the screenshots now?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so again, we're just gonna now, you know, I love this style, and probably because I you know, I've never been skinny, but I seem to be growing larger and wider as I get older. So even in my not so youthful state anymore, I find this a fun and flattering dress. But you know, I'm sure if I was lithe and so on. At any rate, but just look at the size of these sleeves, and you've got to have something balancing it out, because if you look at her head without anything on it, you know, she just does look like a pinhead, and that's what happens when you are wearing dresses like this. So there's some gorgeous ones. Now, these are all just sort of mixed up in here. It's doing it by name versus anything else. But I wanted to show you that kind of later on, now, you know, the difference between the first photo here, she is, you know, probably about 1530 or something like that. She could be, yeah, maybe about 1530, 40, because the waistlines are going down on this particular one. And later on, you know, 1560, right? We've got still some of this kind of hairdressing going on, still a suggestion of the Balzo, but the Balzo is kind of gone now. We don't have this very bulbous grand thing, but we've still got these kind of rolls, whether it's because they have long hair and they want to dress it with just pearls, etc. Some other examples, and in some cases, I don't know what these things are called, right? People go like, what's that? I don't know. Call it, you know, a guirlanda. Call it, you know, is it a balzo? I don't know. You know, you can see the men. Look, he's wearing something too. What's, you know, that's a very similar thing. Now, 1528, 1530, again, massive sleeves. And you've got, you know, just very different, interesting things. So I would suggest that you could be very creative with these. It's more about the shape. Just find a shape that you think is historically kind of correct, and then cover it with fun stuff, you know. I love this woman. This is kind of where I went with this green one. I love these massive sleeves, all of this crinkling going on, this Cavazzola one. She's got, you know, this very, well, very nice, basically Balzo or capigliata on, but she's also got all this interesting textile work going on with her dress, you know, all this gathering, which is not that difficult to do. As an example here, you see it also in, even in ceramics, you see this interesting, this is probably a little bit earlier, probably just around the turn of the 16th century. You know, again, the kind of suggested balzo, but not like the ones I showed you before, okay? And then we go a little later, we're kind of going into the Eleanor of Toledo kind of era, and Eleonora Gonzaga, and she's got some, you know, dressing and some frills on her headwear. This is Isabella d'Este, and I think this is either wool, coiled wool, or what else do I think it could be? And it's not for, or it could be hair. It could be hair, but there's some interesting things going on with wool at the time. So that, again, could be the lightest weight possibility, but who knows? And just kind of scrolling through another one, you know, I'm not kind of, well, I'll open her up. Let's see if we can see her a bit bigger. Because, you know, you can see that there's what's going on here. You know, I don't know. She's got maybe hair behind there, lots of beading, and then I don't really know what's happening on the left side, what's kind of hanging down here. It's, you know, somebody can probably get a better quality photo and imagine that, but still quite lovely. And we're probably coming to the end here. Let's see. Okay, this is one of my Lotto. So this is Lucretia, and when I was in Drachenwald, gosh, about 4 of us made this dress, and so I made it for the Queen of the East at one point out of white and green. It's a very fun dress with all of its, you know, we call it the pumpkin dress, and so probably lots of people have seen this. Again, she's wearing, let's just open her up. Let's see, I think I'm still doing okay for time, and let's just zoom in on her hair. And I think this, again, is sort of this coiled, twisted wool. You've got, now it could be something else, it could be hair, but you know, there's a lot of these tendrils going on. And they're also using a lot of these kind of finishes as fringe on garments. And so it's, you know, it's not unlikely that this could be the same kind of coiled little rolls of wool. And I think this is a guirlanda. This could have just an open back, you know, like a garland as opposed to a covered back. I don't know. We don't have the back of her head to look at. So another one, another Lotto one, and she's kind of big and sort of now droopy, you know, kind of going back behind her head, 15, 18. And then here is the capigliata. That was my influence for the one I'm wearing right now. So I chose a little ornament. In fact, now I look at me compared to her. I said, oh, I could put my ornament down further. But at any rate, this was my influence for that. And then I love the Vecellio and, you know, this classic kind of Taming of the Shrew. So hopefully everyone who is in this class has seen Taming of the Shrew. It's one of my all-time favorite movies with oh my God, she just went out of my head. But thank you. Who?
Elizabeth Taylor.
Thank you. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, right? Fabulous. And there's a lot of this kind of costume in it. In the article, what I said, and it's just interesting, and I'll pontificate for like one moment while I'm going back here. Let me stop sharing for a minute. So, you know, I've been playing this game a long time now, and studied many things in depth, but the Balzo is one of them, and Farsetto, the Italian men's doublet, is another. And through multiple decades, you kind of go, oh, this should be the way it's done. And then you find something else, then you go, oh my God, that was totally wrong. This is the way to do it. And then after like 30 years, I've seen like there are many ways to do these things. And so there are many different examples. And so I would encourage everyone to just kind of not like adamantly swear like that's absolutely wrong and this is absolutely right, because in my own journey, I've gone around multiple times to kind of rethink things. And know that there are different ways of doing things then, just like there are now. So we have to give ourselves a little flexibility. Now, let's see, where am I? I'm going to talk about construction of this one. And to do that, I'm going to share again. Well, let's not share again for a moment. So starting with this example, and again, reminding people, who knows, maybe somebody came on late, you know, you could be using this kind of thing that's available in the Joann's. You could buy yourself some basket weaving supplies, or right now in the middle of a plague, I would go outside and I would cut some of my wisteria that is on the ground, like just going crazy. I would just cut it and I would make one out of that, and you won't have to go to the store at all. So any of those things are available, but we are making one, and you can see in the example that this is shorter and flatter, okay? And we're kind of pushing it down. You can also see that there's really only a couple of kind of horizontal levels. I would say this is an easier shape to make than the other one, but I've made, you know, a few of these, and it's just kind of rounder. It is not entirely round. There's actually a bit of, you know, it's a strange photo or whatever. It's a bit oval. It's, you know, it's more head shaped, and you know, it's loose. So let me just do this as an example. I'm going to take her off, stack her on top of the other ones. And I honestly don't know. Let's see. Can I tell which way is the front? I have a feeling that this might be the front. You know, you have to put something there because after a while. So it's kind of give you an idea. I've got room in here, right? I've got, you know, kind of like an inch, maybe a ½ inch around it, because I need that room for my padding around the head, because I don't want all these bits sticking into me. Okay, so I'm going to share again, and I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of how to make these things. Let's see, where am I? Finder. Oh, now I've totally lost where I am. Here we go. Okay, so I'm sorry, that's a comparison actually of a 15th century frame, the one I showed you with the hair on it, and the 16th century one, just to kind of give you an example. They're of similar width, but the heights are very different. Okay, let's see. Again, a similar comparison to the height of the frame versus the later 16th century that we're talking about now.
These aren't showing enlarged for us.
They are not. Okay, thank you for speaking up. All right, let's see. I have a feeling I have to drag this into the middle or something. Do you see that now? No.
No,
Oh,
I see her.
Oh, I see what's happening, I think. Okay, I don't really know what's, let's do it this way. There. Well, I don't quite know what happened to my view. Let's see if I can get it into this way. Maybe this is going to be better. Okay, can you see this better now? A bit bigger. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so that's kind of an example of, you know, how big is that? I don't know, that's probably about 10 inches, you know, just kind of in diameter after it's done. Another photo of it, you know, all done. There's the frame. Some of these I've already shown you. This is in the document. Most of these photos are in the document. And then this one I'm going to show you that is a big circle. So when we were talking about the silk of this one, That is an example just for a class that I made. It's not silk, that's this, I don't know, polyester or something. And all it's done is been gathered in circles, concentric circles. And then you're just gathering it up. And she's a little flat, you know, but she's not doing bad for 25 years old. So you're just gathering, and then you're shaping it over this frame. And I'm gonna stop sharing here, okay? Here. In time, we have 10 minutes, good, that'll be enough. So I'm holding this up, and I'm also gonna hold it just on my hand, because all is happening is we've got just concentric circles going here. And then if I did have a cover on this already, just to make it a little bit, you know, it's really the cover, that padding is really only to smooth out the bumpy bits, you know, so they don't kind of protrude through. Is there anything stopping me from just like not having a cover at all? Well, only the fact that it would make it more difficult to sew this on, right? Because you're basically, you know, pinning it on, you know, and you're kind of arranging your circles, right? You know, and this would all be kind of gathered up, okay, up to the edge, and you're just kind of crunching up your circles. So in this case, you would pin it on, and having that lining kind of over the wicker just gives you more places to sew versus the only thing you have underneath here right now is this. So that's really the, you know, the purpose of the lining, just to attach the other stuff, and you want to make it as light as possible. So you shared the file browser, not the screen, so we only see the file browser. I trust that's done now. Did you actually see those? They were mostly what I'm showing you right now, right?
Yes.
So if you are interested in making this cabinet out of big circle of cloth. Now I just want to take a few minutes, kind of at the end, we'll stop for questions in 1 second. I want to show you, actually, it's a good segue to Sarai's class. She showed you how to, and in the hair taping. I have a reference to that. I sat in a kitchen again, like, let's try this. So interestingly, I have a different way of doing it, but I want to show you something. Let me see if I can share one photo of me. Desktop, let's see, desktop, and here, let's see if this works. No, can you see that? No, probably not. Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at any rate, the whole purpose of showing you me this morning before I got dressed was to show you that I have really short hair now. I used to have long hair, not down to my waist or butt, but pretty much, you know, well past my bra strap. And I haven't had that hair for like a long time now. So my purpose of this is to tell you that even with short hair, you can kind of get your hair up and like this. And at the time, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when I had long hair, you know, it was really great to put under caps, because you see that ring under a lot of Italian caps, and however sheer they are. But this is the interesting thing. It is a great anchor for these kinds of headdresses. And if you are wearing a, even a horned hennin or a sella or something really tall, the point is that this, and I'm really going to screw up my hair now, so I'm just going to jam it on. This ring that you've got, even with my short hair, anchors this thing to your head. You do not have to pin it, because this ring of hair is sitting there and there's no pins, you know. So that is a very liberating thing, because, now it's going to really be messy, but because it just sits on top of it. And I'm going to just show you that even with my really short hair, it's not going anywhere. Okay. I mean, and the bigger ones, it's such a different thing. Now, the big difference, I'm not sharing anymore, right? I'm not sharing my screen. Okay. this is what I do differently than Sarai. So, and I don't really know if it makes a difference because I never tried it her way. I mean, I had braids and all that. I mostly did it the same way she did. But now that I have really short hair, I have no braids, you know. I mean, my hair is, you know, like down to here, like I showed you the photo before. So where the way I've always done it is I've used a ribbon, we'll call it a ribbon. Alas, my maid and my bende do not seem to be with me in Fiesole today. So I ended up using some bias tape that I had handy just to get my hair up for demonstration. So the point is I'm making is because I don't have braids anymore. And even when I did, I would anchor this with a needle. And this is actually a bone needle that some of your friends who do these sorts of things can probably make with you. And I happen to love them for this because if you try to do it with either plastic, will work. Metal doesn't work. It's very sticky to the head. But bone needles go really easily through this. And so basically the difference is that I am anchoring this actually to my head and twisting around. That may be one of the reasons that it doesn't move around so much. And I typically use linen or cotton versus silk. You could use silk. So I just wanted to say that that is a great segue from her class on taping her hair. Now we only have a few questions or a few minutes for questions, so I'm happy to take any.
We had one question asking about the silk you were showing earlier. Is that Mawata?
I have no
Is
idea.
that what it's called?
25-year-old. Bought it 25 years ago. It's not Dupioni. It's got a little bit of sheen to it.
Oh no, that raw silk stuff that you got at Penzek and you didn't know the name of it.
That silk. There's a name. It's not a cocoon. It's there's some freaking name here. Let's see. Bundles. People who weave with silk, I think, and I got it from a weaver. Not, you know, one of the weaving supply stores, like, you know, where you get embroidery stuff and all of that. I don't know what this thing is called. I could do research and find out. Somebody knows, because I've been with people and they go, oh, that's a such and such. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't weave, so I don't know. But, you know, if you, it's not a cocoon. It's not the little silk cocoons itself, but for whatever reason, it's fairly common and fairly inexpensive. I will look at my receipt from 2007, and they cost me like $3 each. It's a beautiful thing. Any other questions? Has the handout changed much from the 2002 edition? No, I just added a couple of things today. I updated my bio. I tried to add the silk cocoon thing, which I couldn't remember the name of. I had to sort out the ancient Word document that was, you know, 20 years old, but no, it hasn't changed that much. Okay, silk thing is a stack of silk cocoons washed and stretched and stacked. It could be. Somebody's gonna do better than me and find the term for you. So any other questions? We're 2 minutes away from finishing. I really hope somebody goes out and makes a balzo. They're not that hard. You can make them in, you know, an afternoon. What else do you have to do anyways, except sit here and watch people and, you know, go out and gather some materials, get some scraps of fabric from your stores and make one. Silk batting, that's not the word I think I've seen, but hey, why not? That's fine.
Silk roving.
Roving? I thought roving could be. It sounds familiar. Could be. Is the construction of the saddle-shaped one similar with the basket frame? I think it is, because anything you have that gets that big, you need air to make it big. You do not want to make it big with stuff because it gets too heavy and too unwieldy. So I have never made a sella, but I would try. I would, you know, kind of just make your frame and then you kind of go for some horns, or that everything you add to it just makes it bigger. So as I showed you, what you end up with, it's gonna get taller. But I'd love to see somebody try. Please make a sella. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a wonderful time. I'm going to sit here and listen to whoever's next.